Well, hello, listeners. We are very, very honored and happy at being able to say this that we have with us today Mr. Rajiv Malhotra, who has been trained as a physicist and then as a computer scientist specializing in AI. So, here we are today to discuss this book titled Artificial Intelligence and the Future of Power, the Five Battlegrounds.
So, my good name is Abhivardhan. I'm the chairperson of the Indian Society of Artificial Intelligence and Law. Since we have begun this book discussion, let's have a brief overview of what the book is, because there are five battlegrounds which have been discussed in this amazing book. So, I would request Sir to please brief about what the book is, what does he think about it, what inspired him to write, and then we can go ahead with the discussion.
Sure. So, when I did artificial intelligence as a computer science student in the US nearly 50 years ago, it was a very basic field, not so advanced. Then I set it aside and I got into humanities, social sciences, started a foundation, a think tank to promote ideas about our civilization and do a lot of original research myself. But about 5 years ago, I decided to go back and update my knowledge on AI and bring it in the context of Indian civilization, India, Indian thought, issues in India, because I felt that India is lagging behind. And of course, India is now about 10 years behind China and the US in artificial intelligence. We have a large amount of manpower trained, but these people get outsourced. They're working to create intellectual property for other people and not Indian intellectual property. And also, a lot of the work that the artificial intelligence trained people in India are doing is very basic and low level kind of work. So I felt that this needs to be addressed. And I was not satisfied. I'm still not satisfied with the policies in India on data protection, on the way India is going about managing its artificial intelligence program, and not fully aware of the dangers and threats that foreign artificial intelligence brings for India's national security. So these are some of my reasons. And I organized the book into five battlegrounds. Each battleground is a Kurukshetra where different players are going to battle it out. Battleground one is economy, jobs. There'll be winners and losers. There'll be new haves and have-nots. Some of the industries will do well because of AI. Some industries will be wiped out. Some people, individual workers, will do well, make a lot of money. Some investors will do well, and a lot of other individuals will lose jobs. So it's a battleground, and it has to do with the nature of education and skilling and all that. Battleground two is China, Pakistan, the whole international geopolitics, military, because AI is very important for weapons. I'm having many discussions with military and defense people, both in the US and in India, and they're very concerned about how China has gone ahead in artificial intelligence and developing lots of weapons based on AI. Third battleground is psychology, the public being gamified by social media. And social media is run by algorithms. Social media is not run by human beings sitting and, Mark Zuckerberg is not sitting there making decision to boost this guy and ban this guy and allow this fellow and all that. All of it is automated, run by algorithms. And these algorithms are run by AI. So AI is driving all the social media and a lot of other things happening in public policy. A lot of hiring, firing of when people submit candidates, when people submit applications for a job in the US, the AI does a screening and brings in a few finalists. Universities are using AI for admissions. So AI is being used in a lot of different ways. And this is battleground number three, because there is issues of bias, there is issues of fairness, there is issues of, are we becoming morons and delegating everything to machines and letting machines run the life. So if the machine likes something I'm doing, I feel very happy, I'll do more of it. If the machine bans what I'm doing, I will not do it. A machine is watching everything I click, every click I make, and figuring out what he likes, what he doesn't like, what is his ideology, whom he supports, who are his friends. Machine has facial recognition, so it can understand, recognize where I am, what I'm doing. So all of this means that the machines are running the show more and more, and people are surrendering their agency. This is battleground number three. Battleground number four is spiritual ramifications, spiritual implications of the loss of self. In other words, rather than going in my own adhyatmic side, which is what our yoga teaches, which is what our meditation teaches, rather than discovering the Anand inside, We are going externally, wearing variables which will make me have fantasy. I can go here, go on a vacation there, all kind of variables and augmented reality, virtual reality, taking the person's attention and his pleasure externally stimulated rather than internally discovered. So this is there's a spiritual crisis that this would cause. Now these are four battlegrounds, and the fifth one is India. What is happening to India? How robust is India's sovereignty? So I called it the stress test. Stress testing India's sovereignty. And I'm not talking 50 years out. I know, whenever I raise this issue to Indian officials, they like to pretend that it is far away, हाँ हो जाएगा देखेंगे. But I'm talking about 2025. I'm talking about the threats India faces now in the next few years. And by 2025, these threats will become very serious. And by 2030, things could really India could be in trouble. So that is the uh, background of the book. I also want to say a little bit about AI and law. That might, and then I'd like to take some questions. One of the legal issues is if an algorithm makes a choice, whether to turn left or right in a crisis mode, it's driving a car. If I turn left, I'll kill this fellow. If I turn right, I may injure that fellow. Who made the choice? Who decided which one gets hurt? So as algorithms make choices on hiring people, what are the consequences of hiring X and not Y? As algorithms decide there is a rare organ and organ transplant is to happen, and there are 100 people waiting for heart transplant, but only three hearts are available, who gets it? Algorithm decides. So who has liability, legal liability, if an algorithm is making decisions of life and death? And also an algorithm could cause accidents, could cause problems, not just choose between option A and option B, but actually malfunction. Who's liable? Now, you may say that the person who trained it is liable, but that's not so clear who trained it. Because, when a child is growing up, there are many influences training the child. Parent trained him, school trained him, friends trained him, media also trained him. So just like the child looks at so many examples and learns from them, and he gets influenced, and he's a product of all kind of influences, and you cannot pinpoint and say, okay, this fellow is on drugs because father trained him. It could be some friends trained him. It could be multiple influences. Who do you blame? So same way in the case of algorithmic training the machines. A machine gets big data, and this big data gives examples of what to do, what not to do. That's called big data. The equivalent of experience that a child gets is big data for a machine. But there is the algorithm keeps learning. Facebook's algorithms learns from what I am doing. It learns from what you are doing. Thousands of people are doing. It's going on learning. So you cannot pinpoint and say that the bias and the problem in the algorithm is caused by so and so, because it learned from many people. Many people trained the algorithm. So who is responsible? Plus, there is lack of transparency in the algorithm. When you ask, explain to me your algorithm, the people who own it can't explain it because it's constantly learning. It's constantly changing. It is not a fixed algorithm. The machine learning is a dynamic algorithm. It's learning from experiences. So like, for instance, if you have an algorithm that's learning about case law in India, and you keep feeding it case law, and so it processes all the case law, it understands the language, could be Hindi, English, whatever language the case is written in, and from that it's able to derive what actions produce what consequences. What's the likelihood if your strategy is like this, then you will get a favorable outcome. All kind of legal understanding, just like lawyers, human beings have. It can be augmented by algorithms. So the question is, somebody asks you, okay, show me the logic in your algorithm, how you came up with this. The person cannot, because it is so complex. It is so complex, and the algorithm has learned from many, many cases, from many, many examples, so much big data. You cannot say that the algorithm works exactly this way. Algorithm works this way in some case, in that way in another situation, in that case in another situation. And the algorithm is always learning. If I explain it to you today how it's working, then tomorrow it's different because it's got new data also. So this is another challenge for the law. Now, the biases are a very serious problem being discussed and debated, litigated in the US. Blacks are claiming that a lot of facial recognition, which is looking for different people, you can recognize, AI can recognize people, individuals. And then when they look at pictures of prisoners, if there happen to be more blacks, then it begins bias that it thinks blacks must be criminals. Or if you are looking for if you're looking at a pattern of people who have bad debt, who should not be given loan or credit, then because of history, because certain community were suffering because of financial problem, the algorithm assumes that there is a relationship, that if somebody belongs to this particular community, he's not a good person to give loan to. So there is bias in all kind of things. In admissions, people have made cases. Gender bias, feminists have filed cases that, and LGBTQA people have filed cases that these algorithms are biased. So in India, none of this is happening, which is very strange. In US, this is the cutting edge of what's going on. Uh, Another thing that I'm concerned about is that uh, these algorithms have been trained on Western Indology, Western study of India. So Westerners have a certain idea what is caste, or what is the meaning of swastika. According to them, it is a Nazi symbol. It's illegal in many places. So it's something you should red flag and ban it, and maybe ban this guy, and maybe put in his portfolio that he must be a fascist. But in our culture, it is not. So the training has been done on based on the scholarship of people that are not friendly to us. It has not been done based on the scholarship of our own adhikaris, our own dharma shastras, our own pandits and scholars and acharyas. The algorithms in the West have, even the algorithm trying to evaluate about India and Indian culture, are trained by Westerners according to their idea. So it is not our drishti, a community's own view, lens by which the algorithm is trained on how to look at that community. The community is looked at through what I call Western universalism, which is the lens of Western people, their history, their philosophy, what happened in Europe. Based on all that, they've come up with a theory that this is normal for everybody in the whole world. But that's not true. It's normal for them, but may not be normal for us. So this is kind of training based on Western universalism, even of Indian culture, is quite misleading. It's a legal problem. People should challenge it. So then there is another issue I have is, in Battleground 1, there'll be loss of jobs. Who is going to retrain these workers? Does the employer have liability and responsibility that if many thousands, lakhs of workers become redundant, who's going to retrain? It's going to be very expensive. They keep saying that we'll retrain, but they don't really have it in their budget. If you look at corporate budgets, there is no line item saying retraining due to automation. They don't want to talk about it. So then there is this loss of agency. Individuals are becoming dumber, more dependent on algorithms. Algorithms are becoming smarter. So there is a unfair treatment of certain cultures. Sometimes they will say they will ban one of my block. I get a notice from Facebook or YouTube that this particular post of yours or video of yours violates community standards. Now they don't tell me what community standard, who decides. Give me some proof what it violates. It is just something their algorithm concluded, and there is no accountability. And so I could go on, and we'll talk more as the questions come. But what is really concerning me is that India is being gamified and by foreign AI. It is not the fault of AI. It is whoever is owning it. If I own the AI and use it to monitor you, do surveillance on you, then manage you, then gamify you, then decide what to do with you, then I have the power. But if you own the AI, you can do the same to me also. So it's a question of who owns the AI, and India does not have much ownership of AI per se. This is when I will stop, because I would love to have some interesting questions from your side. Thank you.
I would say this is an interesting introduction, since we actually have come to the point to discuss about how companies in various parts of the the Westosphere, as we say, or whatever, they have actually kind of influenced us through AI in many ways. I mean, you gave some interesting examples like the surveillance in Kumbh Mela, and there were Harvard University scholars who were doing it. Then you also gave example of Facebook, Twitter, Google. In fact, Facebook Incorporated does that. I mean, that's how algorithmic surveillance happens. So my question is about the basic philosophy of the book in the very introductory part. You have actually covered a very good comparative analysis of the understanding of Vedanta, and you have also expressed that due to, because we'll definitely discuss modernization of human mind, which is a very interesting idea that you have discussed in the book. But so my first question would be in this way, that since you say that the Vedantic understanding, which is basically in Indian philosophy, has to do with human consciousness, while artificial intelligence is used to kind of machinate, kind of animate material desires and material understandings of human life, whatever it is. Uh, how can we, and how can we learn, obviously, because even the understanding of Vedanta can start from one particular scholar or one particular rishi, but then when you go for the commentaries, it's deeper. So how should we take inspiration, and how should we understand that the materialization of our conscious needs is decluttered through Vedanta, and how should we understand this comparison? If you can highlight more about that.
Sure. So, but I will answer this just to let you know, I'm writing a series of sequel books to go deeper into all these problems. So,
That's
I'm
nice.
one of them is on Vedic AI, Vedic inspired AI. Can we use AI to, in line with the Vedic thought? And I believe we can, and I'm developing that. But the gist of your question is the inward journey versus the outward journey. The outward journey is materialism, biological materialism, which says that I am basically biology. There is no such self, well, spirit, vagara, atma, kuch nahi hai. And basically, I'm basically this. All these organs. Organs are made of molecules. Molecules are made of atoms. It's just material thing. And so, if you have some technology which can manipulate and create hormones, I feel happy. Create endomorphines, create pleasure for me, sensory pleasure. Give me the fake pleasure. Fake, just like there's fake news, there's fake pleasure. I feel something which is not even real. So, but Vedant says that is a delusion, that you're deluding yourself. You're going deeper into the illusion. You are going deeper and deeper. And we are saying, Are bhaiya, even without AI, we are saying neti neti. We are saying neti neti, give up all this and get to the real bliss and pleasure comes from being with yourself and discovering that higher self within you, the higher consciousness within you. So AI is taking you further down. It's taking you further away from that. So there will be a streaming service where somebody will charge you X rupees a month and they will give you streaming of joy. आपको you'll have a silver level or a gold level or a platinum level or diamond level of happiness and joy artificially created for you. Because it will know आपकी hobbies क्या हैं, आपको chocolate खाना है, you like this particular actress, you want to have a fantasy with this actress, whatever your fantasies are, whatever makes you happy, the AI can understand you very well, better than human psychologists can, and then AI can artificially give you that also. So people will end up with artificial life, with some kind of fake life, and lot of people will become total morons, total zombies, living in this kind of world. And these digital companies will become worth even more. They're already so rich, the richest companies in the world now. They become even richer because they're hacking the deepest desire side of human beings. So you see the world becoming fake, experience becoming fake, less and less real, away from the journey of Vedanta, is a serious issue, and gurus need to understand it. I'm writing. I finally found that Ramakrishna Mission finally got interested in me. I convinced one young Swami in New York, and he's uh, reading my book and very interested. And he passed it on to the editors of their journal, Prabudh Bharat, and they want me to write an article on this whole thing about the spiritual consequences of all of these things. So I feel that at least one guru organization is interested, but most of the others don't want to talk about it. They're afraid to talk about it. Maybe they're embarrassed. They want to quietly read it and then pretend they know all of this. But I wish the gurus would play a role, because I would like to have discussions with them on what is a responsible way for Vedic people, Vedantic people to engage in AI without letting it delude you. There are so many benefits it gives you. It can help you in agriculture, it can help you in medical surgery, it can so many things it can do. It could also probably help in more efficient, yes, it's in more efficient energy generation and climate change areas, all those kind of things it can help you, practical things it can do. But what concerns me is when it starts manipulating the human mind. When it is used by human mind to solve disease and to solve problems here and there, and all of that, fine, that is one thing. But when you turn the surveillance into the human person himself, and then you gamify the person, and then the person becomes an object, the person becomes an object controlled by whoever is controlling this AI machine, then I think there is a serious ethical problem. And I think that is where law has to come in, because there must be laws against brainwashing or some voodoo, black magic. Because when you are doing black magic, there are these laws against superstition and black magic. You are fooling people with deception. That is the idea, that you are fooling people with deception. And so there are laws against it. It's a crime. So similarly, I could argue that a lot of this AI is actually fooling people. And when there's misinformation, when there's fake information, when they're giving you a sense of who I am, which is not real, and which is going to get me in trouble, that should be a responsibility also.
That's really interesting. That was the reason why I did ask question about Vedantic understanding and how this affects. So let us discuss a little bit about the modernization of human mind, because that has been a very one of the most important constituents of this book. So why I would like to ask the question about this is because you've also discussed about algorithmic biology, where you have very interestingly made a point that issues of algorithmic biology and even issues related to the nativity of cultures can come into a UN Convention on Biological Heritage. And that has actually been a very interesting comment per se. So I would like to understand, for the sake of the podcast, what is modernization of mind, and how can we understand biologically, in that sense, algorithmically, how AI is being used in various forms. It can be facial recognition, it can be speech recognition, it can be robotics, it can be anything, but how it is. So if you may shed some light upon it.
Sure. And I'm glad you asked this question. So moronization means logon ka buddhu bana rahe hain. Okay, you're making a fool out of people. So, so moronization means that as machines get smarter, people getting dumber. Machines getting smarter, people getting dumber. People saying, we will ask Google, why do I need to know anything? Sir, why do I need to study law? I'll ask Google, wo bata dega. And now, you should your law students will say, why work so hard? Case law, Google mein sara aa jayega. They will tell us what we need. Usko puchenge, Google Devta, and he will answer it. So this is becoming dumb, dumb. So see, ask Siri, ask Alexa, some voice device somewhere, ask, go to Wikipedia. You don't even have to type, you just speak and, you get your answer. So this business of the adhikar, the source of knowledge and authority, is shifted to the digital algorithms. And these people who own these algorithms are sitting far away, some other country, and they don't have any vested interest in what is happening in India. They're just marketing and making money. So the whole generation is being raised on this, the digital gurus, these digital devatas, and we are getting dumb. So we are in awe कि मेरे को उसने retweet, बहुत सारे retweet दे दिए, तो I'm very grateful. और मेरा जो opponent है उसको नहीं मिले, तो I'm winning. So we think that I'm beating one Indian is beating the other Indian, because he's better off in Twitter, or he beat him up and on Facebook or something, not realizing that whole Maidan, that whole playing field, the whole theater where we think we are dancing and we are doing all this becoming important, that is controlled by somebody else. There are these are people who are the puppet master. They got the strings, wo putli ki tarah aapko nacha rahe hain, and you are very happy. So they can also make you fight each other. They can say this community, they can gamify this community, whether it is farmers, whether it is Dalits, whether it is Islamic people, Christian people, leftist people, Hindu people, whatever. They can take a community, understand what their hot buttons are, how they respond, what they will respond to, who their leaders are, what their ideology is, how to manipulate them, how to make them think a certain way. And then they can bring in the kind of content to motivate them in a certain direction. They can have divide and rule. They can create divide and rule like the British East India Company did with Raja 1 versus Raja 2, because they understood, they had spies, they had understood how their thinking is. So this kind of insight, information, and the ability to manipulate, while the public becoming morons, becoming, and our leaders not understanding this. Our leaders don't understand what I'm telling you about. This is a very serious problem I'm finding. So this is power in the hands of people who've got this huge AI machinery going, and they are 10-15 years ahead of India. And Indians are very proud कि हमारे पास कितने सारे WhatsApp users हैं sir, हमारे पास तो कितने सारे so many Google users, so many Facebook users, we are the number 2 or whatever, number 3 or number 1 in the world. But it is not our technology. We are users of somebody else's technology. We may have a largest number of cell phones, but these are hardware is Chinese and the operating system is American. So what is there to be proud of? What is there to be proud of? So the thing is, we are proud for the wrong reason. We are proud as consumers of somebody else's product, and we are proud that he वो हमको नचा रहा है तो हम नाच रहे हैं. तो we are very proud. हमको बहुत नचा रहा है वो, तो हमको ज्यादा नचा रहा है. चाइनीज लोग को अमेरिकन नहीं नचा सके बिकॉज उन्होंने आउट कर दिया उनको. हमको नचा रहा है तो वी आर नंबर 1. Obviously these social media people will send their CEO to India and have hug and selfie with the prime minister and look very important, and we give them importance. We think कि ये तो कोई कहीं से देवता आ गया. You see, so this is the whole area of moronization. Now the second, and this is battleground number 3, and this is explained in I believe it's chapter 4. It's explained in chapter 4 very in detail, and also chapter 8. Chapter 4 is general for everybody, and chapter 8 or 9, one of them is for India particularly, how Indians are vulnerable to becoming morons. And Indians are, I would say, among the largest number of morons as far as being morons of AI, because such a large population, totally mesmerized by this foreign stuff, not understanding the game that is being played. The second question you asked is, the biological rights. Now, I'm glad you picked it up, because very rarely have people picked up that point in the book. You see, the UN Charter gives biological rights to the traditional culture where a plant has come from or some biological material has come from. If a community somewhere in the Amazon jungle has been using a particular plant to treat a certain disease, and the pharma industry people go around the world looking for such things, and they take cuttings from that tree and they bring it back to their labs, and then they find out which molecule out of all the plant complicated stuff, which is the molecule they can isolate that is active molecule. Then they get patent on it. Yeah, and then they sell that medicine back to make a lot of money. So there is a law. There's a law I've quoted in this book, where the community can claim that because it was based on their plant product, even though they did not patent it, but it was based on their plant product, which they were using for a certain purpose, they get a certain share of that right. They get a certain percentage share of that intellectual property. Now, the proposal I'm making is that just like plant is raw material for discovering drugs, similarly, big data is raw material for discovering algorithms, for making your algorithm stronger. So if the foreign company comes, they do some surveillance in Kumbh Mela, and they got 10 crore people, up to the 10 crore people there, and they got a lot of diversity of genetics, they got diversity of language and culture and economic strata, and all kind of social situations, and the algorithms are studying all this. They're really studying a very complex microcosm of the whole world in one place, because Kumbh Mela is as diverse as the whole world put together. So they're studying this, and that's very precious big data. Why are we giving it away free? Why are we even giving it at all? Why aren't we letting our people? There is no shortage of smart people in India who could do all this. Why don't you go to 5-10 Indian universities and put out a tender and say, okay, we want to give 3-4 contracts to you people, come up with a proposal. You will fund Indian research. Why would you outsource this to foreign people? I cannot understand why Yogi Adityanath did that. According to me, a serious blunder. Especially after I had gone to him personally and briefed him what the problem is they still did it. So that is my situation, my position on turning the human being into biology, and turning the and looking at biology as algorithms, as machine, and then gamifying this machine, manipulating it, making curing problems, also curing a lot of diseases also, and putting in implants to manage it properly, manage it according to the way they want to manage it. So the human being becomes a biological machine, which is operated by some AI system, and so this way they can treat so many people in India as sort of uh, biological objects that are working for them, and they are busy collecting data out of it. They're busy collecting data, saying, okay, when I put this happens to the body, this hormone gets created, this happens to this cell, that cell. You can do tremendous amount of research and create not only drugs and medicines, but you can create discoveries how to upgrade human being, how to upgrade the vision, how to upgrade the hearing, how to upgrade the heart, how to make the person stronger or weaker. There is research on making viruses that will only attack a particular DNA type of DNA. Okay, this is not science fiction. There are viruses that will spare a particular kind of DNA, which means that it will go for anybody, but this particular DNA, it will not attack that part of the DNA. So this is all big data. Biology has become part of biology is part of AI now. The future of biology, biological research, particularly genetic research, and also the microbiome, because the sheer magnitude of complexity in the microbiome, which is the gut, and Ayurveda says it's very, very very precious, very, I should say, very important part of the person is the gut, the microbiome, because a lot of disease comes from there, a lot of intelligence is there, a lot of solutions come from there, and so the Western medicine just discovered it. A huge amount of research using AI in that area is going on. So our people need to wake up. That's what I'm trying to do.
I really like that you made the point of genetics and how does it affect at a broader scale. And it's true. I mean, biology definitely is connected to AI because the question of bioethics comes in, how it is integrated. I think you have very beautifully, even extended the question that I asked. So that's really great. Now I would like to discuss a bit about decoloniality. So we know that digital colonization has been done by various countries. The Americans have done it, the Europeans have done it, the Chinese are very good in doing in Africa. And digital colonization has already have begun in India. In fact, not just begun, it has very well extended. I mean, you have very well pointed out about the private actors. So digital colonization in law even means the same way in constitutional issues. So my question was that the understanding of decoloniality for India is very different, and I think you have wrote about that in your past books as people are discussing about it. So when we know that digital colonization becomes normal, and we know that okay, fine, there are certain resources that you can't remove sometimes because of the thing that you have discussed. How should we start decolonizing? Because then what happens is, for example, I can make one example. When this feud between the government of India and Twitter was happening, we all know that the Coup app came as an alternative. Before that, there was an app known as Tutor. Tutor and Coup became alternatives. In fact, Coup had, if I may remember, 5 to 6 million users, which is like 15 million from Twitter in India. And obviously, the founder has given some high hopes about it. Still, I mean, the competition is going on and things are changing. How do you see this? How should we start decolonizing in that way? Because
firstly, I like that Coup is there, but I'll tell you, it is not just about sending messages to each other. I don't think they have an AI platform. I don't think they have a machine learning platform. I don't think they have a gamification. I don't think they have advertising, e-commerce how to monetize it. The reason Facebook, if you take Facebook as a competitor, or let's say Twitter as a competitor, the reason they are able to invest so much in artificial intelligence, and these are the leading in the world, these kind of companies, is because they make a lot of money on advertising. So you have to fund it. You cannot expect some government or somebody will fund you 10,000 crores a year, 50,000 crores a year. That's the scale of budget I'm talking about. They're not going to just give it to you for funding it. You got to make the money in advertising, and that means you got to have a back end for a whole e-commerce back end, and this requires several thousands of man years to develop this kind of e-commerce back end, because Facebook did not invent it overnight. Twitter didn't invent it overnight. YouTube didn't invent it. Amazon didn't invent it. These guys took a long time. It's a lot of effort to do all this. So they have the experience lead of 10 years, 15 years. Who hasn't even started, monetizing and being able to make money so that you can break even, then you can have profit, then you can invest the profit to invest in new technologies. So there is no AI in it. There is no use of the big data to learn and be able to do things. It's just a pretty dumbed down, basic, simple बातचीत करने के लिए, just that. So at the level, or at a surface level, it looks like it can replace, but it cannot replace, because once the scale goes up, once the size of the number of people goes up, and the number of coups that are being put out there, it becomes very large. The point is that it will take a huge amount of hardware. That will take money. You'll also need responsible people on the staff to block those who are irresponsible, those who are talking nonsense, to stop misinformation, to stop libel and slander. So you will need a lot of staff. If you look at how many staff does Facebook have, if it's in the tens of thousands. So who cannot afford that? Even though Indian salaries are lower, but who cannot afford that unless you have a financial model? So I think the excitement is okay, is good, but it's very basic solution. I would have liked somebody like Reliance to do it because they have the money. I would have liked TCS to do it. I would have liked Infosys to do it. I would have liked Mahindra to do it. I would have liked somebody with billions of dollars, rather than buying some fancy jet and buying some island somewhere and building a 20-story house and living like that. I mean, they could easily have said, we're going to become, like China said 15 years ago, that they will be the number one in artificial intelligence by 2025. That was openly stated. It was first secret, private, then they made it open more and more last many years. So India needs to have a goal like that. I mean, if Ku can set up a goal, it will need a very large amount of funding. And a small company, people in India, the venture capitalists give little bit of money. They do not give big money like the American and Chinese have got so much money to invest. So as far as the future is concerned, can it take on the digital giants from other countries? I'm not sure. And then don't expect that as it takes 5 years to catch up with where they are today, that those people are sitting still. They are going further ahead. In 2022, Facebook is going to introduce augmented reality goggles, and so will Apple. So now Facebook will become a hardware company. So they will have a huge install base, like Apple has iPhones. Facebook will have these goggles, and they're testing them. I know some people who are involved in the testing of this. So this is pretty awesome stuff. They will give you amazing experiences, which is what this whole Facebook is about. People wanting experiences, having friends, and have virtual parties and whatnot. So these augmented goggles will give you that, and eventually it will be implanted. So this will take the AI, all the big data, all the knowledge they have, and give you not just typing, but a whole different level of experience. So, Ku may catch up with where other people are today, and those other people will by then jump ahead. I think that it is not a chota mota business today. It is not a startup from scratch, kind of with 20 people. I don't know how many employees they have, but whatever they have, 100 people is nothing. it is a big game of big boys. And so I'm disappointed at Reliance for not getting into this. I'm disappointed that Reliance would rather sell out equity to Google and Facebook, which is easy way out, because Reliance is delivering 1.3 billion consumers, which those foreign companies cannot access on their own. Reliance has the government connections. They can, they can wine and dine and entertain all the people in Delhi required to get in and do all that. Reliance is very good at that, which the foreign guys cannot do, and they're also afraid. So Reliance gives them all that access to the market, in a sense, selling out. I have a whole section saying India is for sale in my book, and rather than selling out access to the Indian market to these foreign entities, they should have done the exact opposite. They should have said, we're going to do search engine with all the Indian languages. We'll do search engine where when you search, it's not only what you say, but what you've written exactly, but phonetic. Sanskrit is a phonetic language. So even the phonetic equivalents and phonetic similar things it look for. It could have been phonetically oriented. It could have been with Indian languages oriented. They could do that. They could do they could jump ahead of Facebook, have their own AI, put in a lot of Indian big data, and put in culturally Indian values. So train their algorithms with Indian meaning and Indian theories, rather than Western universalism. All of that could be done. And then I would say, okay, now I'm very proud that India is really giving the whole world what it's good for.
The point on inculturation of values of India is something which is very important, because I think even if we see the ban of TikTok, for example, so TikTok also had this issue that they have a very weird recommendation system that, okay, you actually post something according to the graphics, the music, or the kind of background things that you choose up. They try to create popularity scheme in that way, and then they try to manipulate you. Obviously, there are other examples in America as well where TikTok has been accused of racism and all that, but maybe we can discuss this some other day. So this is a really interesting point made on QApp. So I hope that those who are watching it definitely take the feedback into consideration. um, so I would like to ask Mridutpal to go ahead with some questions. I think wishes to. So Mridutpal, please.
Yes. Reports by Analytics India and Niti Aayog show that most of our ventures on AI are run by multinational corporations. We have a problem that Indians often officially get inspired, that is, they copy paste the European or Western models of privacy and data standards. Since we know that the EU is a regulatory superpower due to its GDPR, although the context is exactly legal, but would you be happy to know? Would we be happy to know how you would like to suggest reforms, because our strategic thinkers actually lack a nuanced and unique form of thought process to tackle and develop an alternate AI model. We even experienced it during our Artificial Intelligence General Assembly when a delegate actually told us that a French delegate actually told us that he was expecting a more Indic perspective, but what he actually got from us was more of a GDPR and EU based perspective.
So, you're quoting from my book, or paraphrasing from my book, I guess. I've written in great length that Indian venture capital is all basically dominated by American and Chinese. Now the Chinese are not there. Chinese are, by the way, still there through Hong Kong and through Middle East. You might think Chinese are not there, but Paytm, the equity that Alibaba or whoever owns in Chinese company owns in Paytm is not directly, it is through Singapore. So if India says it'll have a problem with trade relations with Singapore if India says we can't allow Singapore investment because there's Chinese behind it. So it's very difficult to ban these guys. So they're coming through Mauritius also. So now what has happened is, but the majority is American. And the dream of an Indian entrepreneur is to sell out to some American venture capitalists or sell it to Google or something like that. So what you are saying is an important point I've made in this book, that it is also copycatting. So Uber did something, so we made something similar. There's Airbnb, then Indian come up with something similar. There is Amazon, then Flipkart comes. So we are trying to, like, being 10 years behind, trying to copy something. So now maybe Coup will be successful in India, but it's like 10-15 years behind what the other people are doing. India needs to innovate. And the strange thing is that a lot of the innovation happening in US, in Silicon Valley and elsewhere is Indian people. But these Indian people like the ecosystem of innovation in America. They don't find it in India. It's very strange. This Indians should think about it. Ministry of Science and Technology interviewed me yesterday, the secretary of that ministry. And this is what I told him also, that you're not innovative. So the point of innovation is important. As far as your question on the data issue is concerned, I've read the Niti Ayog's report. I've read Chris Gopalakrishnan's. He's a good guy, smart fellow. I've read his the commission he has, the committee he has, their proposal. I've read a lot of them, and I do not find it satisfactory at all. So there are a lot of basic issues. For one thing, India feels incorrectly that if you anonymize the data, you've protected it. But you see, anonymizing the data only means that we won't know it's you. But still, the value of facial recognition is there. I can still make algorithm out of it. Even though I don't know the exact names of people, I'm able to improve the algorithm for speech recognition. I'm able to improve drug discovery with genetics. I don't need to know the name of the person if I'm getting his genetics, if I'm getting his DNA, and I'm correlating with what disease he has, what age he has, and my model is learning using this genetic data as big data is learning. I don't need the names of those people. Why is it relevant? I can just replace the name with a number and satisfy all these people that I've anonymized. So anonymization is only protecting one kind of problem, not protecting enough problem. Second thing I keep hearing whenever I raise this issue, for the last 5 years, by the way, I've been raising this issue privately to a lot of people. Another thing I always heard in defense from their side is that we are having laws where the servers have to be based in India. So I said server could be, if I have information on you and I'm using that information to my advantage, and this is a lot of good information that can help me. It doesn't matter if the server is sitting in your house also. Server could be physically anywhere. It's the question of who has access. The servers in India, how does it change the access? The access, Amazon's got servers in India, but they're accessing it. It could be put on the moon also. How does it matter? In this day of cloud, the location of the cloud is irrelevant. So you may put all these servers in India, but do you know how to make sense of the data? No. The Indian authorities would not, if they took all the data and copied it and brought it in-house, they would not know how to make sense of it, because that depends very specifically on the algorithm. That algorithm knows how these tables are, how these tables have been set up, and what each row, each column means. The algorithm knows, because each machine learning system has its own data design. So that data design is owned by other people, and that's proprietary. So India has not asked for a full disclosure of the data design, data architecture. So having physical custody of their data is useless unless you know what is the data architecture, how to make sense of it. It's just a bunch of zeros and ones unless you can make sense of it. So India has not even, it's all lip service. It's to keep people happy, and it's like a placebo, keeping the public that, oh yeah, we're doing a lot of this stuff. I am not satisfied that this kind of a thing is good enough. And besides, if we are training their algorithms, which India is, both with the big data and a large army of junior level AI people who are doing labeling. They're doing labeling. So by labeling, we are making their algorithms smarter and smarter. We've never asked for equity in that. We've never asked for share of that. You see? So the whole thinking of India is sort of very low expectations. We do not have enough expectations. We are not shooting high enough, aiming high enough for given the strengths India has. We're just looking for give me a copy of this data, keep it on my premises, I'll feel secure. It's all psychological, emotional security. There's nothing else. Make it anonymous so that there's no scandal that some important person's data leaked out. Fine, it gives you some basic level of protection, but it is not the power of a Vishwaguru that these kind of policies will take us to.
Yes, so I have a question from the public on YouTube from Siddharth Ravi Kumar, and I think I must address this question right away since we're discussing telecom and all that. Siddharth asks, do you think vernacular based programming languages would clear a barrier for the majority of Indians to get into CS and AI? What do you think, sir?
So, do you think vernacular? So, would it create? Would it? It depends. If you have a vernacular based or Indian language, let's say Indian language based, software development tools, it will open up a large market of people who have no access today because they have to learn English. Even in your field, which is law, you can go to a court and argue in Hindi, but the case laws are not published in Hindi. Am I right?
Yes, in the high courts you can have in various regional and obviously Hindi, but in the Supreme Court you cannot.
No. But
So,
I'm saying, if I'm a Hindi, if I'm a somebody who wants to argue in Telugu, okay,
okay.
okay. So the court will allow me, but I don't have access to the case law in Telugu.
Generally, I think in the district level subordinate courts, you can have it in regional languages because even in Uttar Pradesh, you can do that. But even the case laws, even in PDF or hard copy, they can be. But for the high courts, it's English.
No. But let me ask you: if I want the case law, I am going to the lower court,
Mhm.
and I'm going to the lower court in Uttar Pradesh.
Yeah.
But to argue my case in Uttar Pradesh, I know of some case that happened in Tamil Nadu.
Okay.
Okay, I know a case that happened in Tamil Nadu. I want that to be available to me in Hindi. And okay, that's what I'm saying. Or I'm a Chennai lawyer, and I want to argue in Tamil. Okay, and I know that there is a case in Uttar Pradesh which will support me. I will use that as a precedence. But that was argued in Hindi and it was published only in English. I don't want to go to those languages. I'm not able to do that. The case law published, the books that have come out, case law, that are sitting in your office and every lawyer's office, those are in English. Am I right?
Yes, naturally, yes, they are in English. Yes.
Okay. So it means that if I'm a Hindi speaking lawyer, I'm at a disadvantage. I don't know the case law. Am I right?
Yes, like in Kerala, there is an example of a few lawyers who are, I think, maybe getting old now, but they actually argue in Sanskrit in lower courts. So even for them, it's a disadvantage. So yeah.
Because if now you see, this is a good application of AI. Rather than worrying about foreign, somebody should take all the case law in English and do a AI-based translation.
Yes.
Okay.
In
So now you see, the thing is this: if you use Google for translating from English to Hindi or any of these Microsoft, the translation quality is lousy. But when you take that same passage from English, if you translate it into French, it's very good. Because they've invested in improving the quality of translation for certain languages. Now, rather than us investing in training Microsoft translator, we should, because they'll own the intellectual property, then we are making them smarter, making ourselves dumber. We should be investing in our own translator. There's no reason why we cannot have natural language processing and use it for translation purposes and create made in India, Atmanirbhar translators owned by Indian companies, intellectual property, not built on top of Microsoft, not built on top of Google, but built entirely on top of our own platform. And then we can start a service to translate lots of texts, like legal texts, into all the languages.
That's really true. I think I have got a follow up from Siddharth if you wish to take
Sure.
it. So, what he meant was, as he says, I mean not just a programming language word by word translated from an established English based PRG language. I meant something based on vernacular Indian idioms, basically natively Indian. So, what do you think of it?
Yeah, I mean, if it is based on Indian idioms, Indian way of thinking, I think it will be very good. But this requires investment. This requires now. I'll tell you, in China, the idiom is Mandarin. It is not just word for word. It is not that you can put in Mandarin text in Microsoft. The whole idiom way of thinking. See, Microsoft, I'll tell you, when you have Microsoft in Hindi, You can put in a Hindi ka text, but when you are saying save, you have to use the English word save.
Yes.
Okay, you have to say move, delete, copy. So you are using the commands are English. अब जो इंडिया में किसी को बोलो सेव, ही विल थिंक यार सेविंग अकाउंट है, पैसा को बचाना है. सेव व्हाट? हु गोइंग टू बी सेव्ड? You know, the idea that save means कि फाइल को वहां रखना है. तो we are not even using Indian. The Microsoft people did not even bother replacing the commands with Indian language equivalent. They could have done that very easily. I mean, it's not like millions of words. It's like a few hundred words that are all the commands. They could have replaced those and put them in Hindi, so that the Hindi person does not feel at a disadvantage because he does not know English.
Like for example, there's as they do in Hindi, for example, Microsoft Word and all that. Okay, one more question I'll take from the same person, but I just to add on to it. For example, if it says save, what they do it, they transliterate into Hindi like sa, chota a, and
That
va,
is
which
wrong.
is save.
See
That's wrong.
what they are doing. What they are doing is they are using Devanagari as the script, but English as the language. A large part of people in India, at least I know in the north, they think, well, all these signboards, name of road, and name of the company, it's all English, but it is written in Devanagari, and they feel very
Yes,
happy. Oh, IIT. I think as if that is Hindi word. They've written in Devanagari IIT for IIT. Okay, yeah. They will even say Indian पूरा देवनागरी में Indian Institute of Technology. वो देवनागरी में लिखा है. That is not Hindi. That is English. But you are just using Devanagari as a script. Bhasha is oral.
that's true. That's really true. I think even words like cycle or computer or train, all of that, they're not but effectively
I,
translated.
I can see I can see modern gadgets that okay they came very recently, but I would say that names are always in English of various companies, Yevo, Plana, organizations, and then the concepts are also in English. You look at Hindi press; it is lot of it is English written in Devanagari.
That's really true. I mean, most of them copy from the French and Italian variants or the British variants. Anyways, one last question from him since he's requesting from Siddharth again. One more question, if you don't mind. Do you think our Shastras on maths have enough material to do something fundamentally new in CS and AI, like multi-valued logic, not binary, for instance? So, yes.
Yeah, there are many things I'm writing on. If you are interested, you should write to me privately at my email ID, and you can join. Help me out, and we can work on how to do this. If you're interested in these things, but I'm looking at also more deeper issues, where our theories in Vedant, our theories of mind, our theories of society, social theory, all of that can become a very important part of whole AI engine, and that AI engine would be much more would be Bharat friendly and our culture friendly, and not something alien that we brought in. So math, yes, math is one part, but there are many things in linguistics, in the structure of languages, in grammar. We could use those to make translations among the Indian languages much better. So this whole field is a very big field, and my book is basically trying to wake up people that we are now sleeping. We put ourselves on autopilot. The foreign wallahs are running our life and running our show, and we're very happy. And we think we're doing very well because we are creating more and more AI courses, more and more students who are going abroad and becoming part of the AI, what I call AI coolies. They're becoming AI coolies. That is the wrong way to build India. So all of these ideas you're mentioning are exactly what we have to pursue, and we got to create funding for this. We got to, the government has to stop this copycat business. Even the ministries are basically doing copycat. When you look at Niti Aayog's strategy on AI, basically they've taken some reports from McKinsey, PricewaterhouseCoopers, which are just all working for Western corporates, and World Economic Forum. They've done all these they've data mined all that, pick up nice jargon and some diagrams and all, and made their own, for India. This is useless. I mean, I'm sorry.
Ex- Yeah. In fact, I have tried to read the report at least 5 times, and I've realized not 5 times just for the sake of it, but I realized one thing, that not only they have just copied from McKinsey, their aesthetic understanding is very undervalued. All of it is just about making India that okay, fine, we are just a AI garage, and everyone from Nigeria or anyone would just come and invest in us. I mean, like we should think about exporting ourselves for India through India in a better way. That's what I think. We even discussed about China, that how China the Chinese did, how Jack Ma did.
So
So
this China. आपने कहा था कि China has colonized Africa. They've also colonized Pakistan.
yes, they have.
And
Yes.
that is very dangerous for India because it's creating a new kind of Pakistan, a new Chinese Pakistani alliance. Now, somebody asked me in the meeting in a conversation yesterday, what would I do? What would be my vision? What would be the milestones? I would say for social media, AI, Indian AI empowered social media. I would say that like today, the social media is American and they're influencing the world through that, and some countries Chinese. We should Indian social media with Indian ideas, values, etc. should be flooding Nepal and Pakistan and Bangladesh and Sri Lanka and Myanmar and Indonesia. I mean, come on, why can't we do that? Why इतनी बड़ी हम कह रहे हैं हम सॉफ्टवेयर सुपर पावर तो बन गए जी. तो सॉफ्टवेयर सुपर पावर आप बन गए, आपके पास लाखों इंडियंस हैं जो इस काम को जानते हैं. Why can't we have a goal which says by 2025 India's market share of Nepali social media will be more than the American market share for social media, and India will achieve so much percent market penetration in Pakistan the next year, so much next year. Put a graph, put target, 5-year target. Put a target for Bangladesh, put a target for Bhutan. Bhutan also got more Americans, only Americans thinking going on there. So at least all the neighboring countries and ASEAN countries, India should set up goals, say in 5 years, we will dominate their social media. And we will do whatever it takes. If it takes that we have to go into their language, we will do language translation. We will put the AI language translation. We will own it. And we will have in Bahasa, in Malay language, in all these languages, we will be the brains and superpower, and our values, our ideas will go into all these countries. India should do that.
That's a really interesting point made. I think they can even further their objective through the Quad by becoming the leader in that way, not just giving everything to Joe Biden. So, I mean, that's a really interesting point made.
Yeah.
Great. Let's just go on with the final questions because I think we already have gone past. So one thing which I really liked, and I think we must discuss it not for the sake of the discussion only, but I think even in AI and law research, is about the aesthetic and pragmatic relationship of things, which is actually through AI. In fact, it is very important because, I mean, it happens in law as well. I mean, we inherited the Westminster system, the common law from Britain, but the problem is that we always have this tendency that, okay, fine, okay, we have a democracy, but in general, I'm taking, although it happens in technology as well, that okay, we have this aesthetic understanding, we impose it, we believe that we also had the aesthetic history. That's why often what happens is that people try to what people say, monotonize, like kind of make things similar the way they are as it was in Europe. Like we also had something like the French Revolution, however things are very different. So if you say in that way how this monopolization happens as far as AI is concerned to this one part of your chapter, which is on aesthetic and pragmatic aspects. What should we understand from it, and what are your suggestions here?
See, the aestheticization, aesthetics versus pragmatics is such a big topic. I could write a whole book on it. I mean, this is really, really a very big topic. It's just that this book was becoming so big that even to fit it in 520 pages, I had to make everything summarize. So that is one of the topics that is very big topic. And what I would like is that if you want to conduct a sort of a seminar or a conference on this whole topic of aesthetics, the whole issue of pragmatics and aesthetics, I think it deserves that attention. I'm glad you raised this because very few people have raised this when they're asking me questions. It is too complicated for them. It is very difficult. They just move on. The issue is very important. The issue is, I started this philosophically. Philosophically, I started by saying, is the universe pragmatic. If there are all these laws that if you do this, ye hoga, gravitation law hai, all the things moving very pragmatically. There's no aesthetic; they're just moving pragmatically, like an algorithm. If the universe is an algorithm, it's all very pragmatic. So I was actually studying this for all my life from a philosophical point of view. That is the universe a pragmatic algorithm? The whole universe, everything. And then if it is pragmatic algorithm, where do aesthetics fit in? Because after all, we have kavya, we have a lot of aesthetics. So where do aesthetics fit in? What is the role of aesthetics? And what is the role of pragmatics? And how do they fit in with each other? This is the kind of inquiry. Then I combined this inquiry with a different inquiry, because the Marxists came up with the idea, the theory of the aestheticization of politics, which changed. Sheldon Pollock turned it into aestheticization of power. So how you aestheticize power in a court? You have this drama baji, and pehle to hota tha, they used to wear these funny wigs. Garmi maybe, I would say, my God. Pragmatically it is stupid, but aesthetically uske saath shaan hai apni, bahut shaan. Wow, I'm standing there like I'm some lord somebody. So India adopted, as you said, European and Western aesthetics. And till today, ये जितने भी ये जयपुर लिटरेरी फेस्टिवल वाले लोग हैं, या उस तरह के शोशागिरी वाले, पेंगुइन में पब्लिश, all these kind of guys, and the fanfare given to them, thanks to this idea of secularism, and therefore secularism means we have to copy the West and all, the Western values. So this whole westernized aesthetics came into India. So in a court also, the lawyer who is very good and very humble and very low cost, he doesn't get this job, whereas a lawyer charging 50 times more, because he has his presence and he knows how to speak, and like some Angrez fellow, he get lot of people ask me, आपको कोई किस तरह का lawyer लेना है, जो काम कर देगा या जो खूब bombast करके court में जाएगा. And this is, India has bought into this aesthetics of legal court proceedings, and media giant, how to become like a very powerful media figure. And this kind of aesthetic works in politics in India also, the kind of neta who goes around and does all this. So this play of pragmatics, which is algorithmic, and aesthetics takes us into the area of emotion. The human being is logical, so his logical side says I'm pragmatic. कहाँ से फायदा होगा, यहाँ काम बनेगा, यहाँ नहीं बनेगा, whatever. He's got pragmatic goals. But the human being is also emotional, and so there is the aesthetic side. You can enter into a person through the aesthetic side. So the AI at first was focused on pragmatics only. Pragmatics, like you drive a car properly, okay, or you pragmatics of you analyze X-rays and see if there's any issue in an X-ray, or whatever, pragmatic results. But AI is now getting into the emotional dimension. AI, there is emotional AI in terms of understanding what kind of emotion this guy has, what is he likely to, how is his behavior being affected by his emotions. I'm going to win him over not just through pragmatic logic, but also giving him some emotional, symbolic thing, psychological. So the psychological warfare that machine learning is getting better and better at involves the use of aesthetics also. This topic is an amazing topic. It's a very big topic. It's one of several things I'm proud of as a very original idea in this book, bringing pragmatics and aesthetics into the context of AI and into the context of Indian society. I think is a very big topic that I'm glad you mentioned it, but it deserves a lot of time.
So we are with the last question, and then we would be done with it. And this is about, I believe it's a fantasy, because even scientifically, I believe that they're just trying to impose it, as you very well said in the very beginning, about artificial general intelligence. Now, we know all of this myth that, okay, some AGI form of a matrix will come and it will rule and all that. So how do you see it? Because I don't think so India has an AGI strategy either. I have even heard UN diplomats and even policy thinkers who say that there's a short-term perspective on regularization and technocratic regularization, and then there's a long-term perspective that everything will control you and all that thing, which I believe somehow is very insane because, first of all, if you are going to do that, you're going to lower the capability of human beings, as you have very rightly pointed out in the book. So, how should India prepare for AGI? We understand we are not at its stage, but still. And there would be one question from Siddharth. If you wish to take it, it's again he wishes to have a follow, but for now on AGI, yes.
So the thing is that AGI is not as far away as many people might think. Or let's just say there is no disconnect between AGI and non-AGI. There's many continuum. It will be gradual. It will be the steps. It's like you're climbing the steps towards AGI, but you're climbing some steps. You are 5 steps, then you will be 7 steps. So you will be approaching it. It is not like ab kuch bhi nahi hai. It's getting better. The artificial intelligence certainly is learning. The algorithms are learning faster than human child can learn. It takes a long time to raise a child. It doesn't take that long to train an algorithm. So algorithms are very fast learning, and so whether we are going to reach AGI at year X or Y, the point is I am worrying that India will not last. I'm really concerned that India as a sovereign country will not last, because my concern is that with the overpopulation and with this breakup of societies, which AI will do, which AI can create breaking India forces 2.0 and create a lot of these fights and schisms and all that very effectively, and we don't control it. Foreign people control it. With that and the Pakistan-China axis using this technology against us, which they are very definitely they're going to do this. This militarized AI through drones and through facial recognition and through robotics and through various kinds of weapons and whatnot, and secret submarines that are without any humans in them. All of that is happening. So Pakistan is really wanting to get into that in a big way with China. So if you look at external threats, internal threats, and the Indians for sale, billionaires to khush hain, they don't care because they have their money stashed away everywhere, and so they don't care. And a lot of the padha likha youth are working like coolies. What will happen to the 50% lower social demographic people, 500, 600 million people of the lower half? What will happen to them? There will be problems. There will be social unrest. There will be so many things going on. Politics, you can keep winning election and maybe you can have power, political power, but that doesn't mean the Rashtra is healthy. It doesn't mean the Rashtra is healthy just because you can get political power. You can have power and the country could be in trouble. So I'm worried about that, and I'm worrying about the role of AI in the next 5 years, 8 years, 10 years in creating serious problems in India. AGI is fantastic. We should put some amount of research into it, but I think we should also learn from the Chinese that some technologies, when they're very early stage, they're very open, and you can copy a lot. Chinese very good at that. Chinese will say, they will make their bets very carefully. They bet on solar energy. They bet on these electric vehicles, this lithium-ion battery. They bet on AI. They bet on certain things, and on other things they said, "Let America do it. We'll just keep track of it. Just keep copying it." AGI is still at an academic stage, such that it's an open book, more or less. A large part of it is quite open, and if you are intelligent, you can just keep sucking in that. All the discoveries, all the experiments they're doing, all the results they're getting. But I'm concerned about things that are very pragmatic, which are very near term, which are now becoming closed, which are not open source anymore. CIA has a lot of advanced technology. Chinese have a lot of advanced technology. To some extent, Russians have, French have, and India doesn't. That's the big concern.
I must say that's an amazing point made on AGI. If you would like to address this last query by Siddharth, yes. So Siddharth says, one last question. What do you think about the recent digital public infra approach being pioneered in India as techno-legal solutions such as Aadhaar, UPI, DigiLocker, etc., which is within the India stack? So what do you think, sir?
So yeah. I mean, these are fine. But there are privacy issues. Just because it's in India doesn't mean that it's safe. People have to look for what is the protection that an individual get. This is your field, your lawyer people, so you have to look at what is the legal protection for a citizen. Can the government gamify us the way Chinese are gamifying their citizens? That's a problem. I mean, if they start gamifying the average Indian and say, okay, aap galat, Malhotra jati is no good because Malhotras are bad people, तो जो जहां भी मल्होत्रा होगा उसके ऊपर लगा देंगे हम, so then I'll have a problem. So you have to the data is, this AI is so powerful. When you put all this data together, that there's also the concern of too much power. But at the same time, with proper legal safeguards, where a citizen should have a right to say, you have this data on me, I want to know what data you have. Did you make this decision about rejecting my loan based on AI? How was it decided? If a person has a case that something unfair is being done using this AI, there should be special courts, and these courts need to be more sophisticated, more intelligent, better informed judges. So you got to upgrade the whole judges also, the judiciary, so they can understand a complicated AI case. I don't know where you'd go in India if you have a complicated AI case about a biased algorithm. I don't know where you'd go where somebody will listen to you and understand it. So if India is moving ahead with all of this kind of building a huge, massive superset data, of all these kind of things put together, there are a lot of applications that will come out of it. But there are also the dangers, not only from Indian government against Indian society, but also foreign hacking. Reserve Bank gave permission to foreign credit agencies to invest in India. So the credit data of India is available to the Americans. So if a missionary is going to a village and he wants to target those people who are poor, or those people who lost a lot of money, who need help financially, he can quickly get a list of, these are the target families. These are the target families that have a medical problem. These are the target families, they have a legal problem, they're fighting each other. It's a brilliant for any marketing organization. If you can know so much about the personal life of your consumers, your customers, you can do so much better. For any ideological person, anyone recruiting Maoists, anyone recruiting terrorists, looking for people who got problem of a certain kind, because the AI system shows that a certain profile is the more likely person to be recruited. So then you can target these people. So the giving away of financial data of individuals, credit data to foreign credit agency, was a big mistake, in my opinion. India needs to. So this business of putting all the data together has the problem that people will hack in. Chinese will hack in, even if you don't give them the permission. People can hack into these things. And then what happened when there's quantum computing? We didn't talk about it. When there's quantum computing, they can hack into all the encryption of normal computers. The only defense against a quantum computer attack will be that you have your own quantum computer to shield it. Okay, if you have quantum encryption, you can shield it against some quantum attack. But if we do not, we are many years behind in quantum computing. I just did a interview with the leading quantum computing expert from Oxford that they just brought into TIFR. Young man, very bright fellow. From Cambridge, they brought him into TIFR. And so he also shows how far behind we are in quantum computing. So with these vulnerabilities, when you put so much data together, it's definitely going to be compromised. That's a concern. So we have multiple problems to put together to solve.
So I would say, with a cautious and a much aware note, we would end this session. I would thank Rajiv sir for coming for the session.
If you want to know more about my book, www.aiandpower.com. aiandpower.com. You can get a lot of excerpts and introduction and a lot of videos. We have 30 episodes like this already up there. Many more episodes coming. If you want to join, there's a place to join our mailing list, and then we keep you informed of all our AI activities. And I'm looking forward to receiving from my hosts a recording, which is what we discussed, a video recording, because then after a few weeks we'll also put it up, and you'll get the people will get to see this discussion again on a very big audience, which I think will be very nice. So I want to thank you guys for hosting this. I think you have done a very good job. You have good knowledge, and I like the fact that you read the book. both the people asking the question read the book, so therefore you're not just asking very elementary questions, you're asking very probing questions. And I'm requiring anybody who want to interview me should have read the book, and they ask me specific questions from the book. The more difficult, the better. So with that, I'll also thank you and say goodbye.
Thanks.
Well, thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. And we, as I said earlier, we are really honored at having with you with us.
Thank you. Good. Thank you.